Hello, and welcome to The Hill is Always Greener, a show where us four friends have chill, low-key, fun discussions about Sonic the Hedgehog to distract themselves from literally everything else in the world, but we're not going to get into that. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves. I am Jeremy, also GameBuddy.
I'm CyberLink.
I'm RockTheJake.
I'm Faulerro. Oh, I suppose I'm also called Chris, but I've not called myself that in a while, even though everyone calls me that on the podcast. It gets a bit confusing, I'm sure.
A smidge.
Just occasionally.
I like the energy that you brought to the intro, by the way, Jeremy.
I try. I feel like
start your engines. That's what made me think of.
Rolling start.
Daytona. I can't hit that note.
Game over, yeah.
So, like always, before we jump into our very interesting, unique topic that I'm excited to talk about. Has anybody done anything else related to Sonic in the interim between episodes?
I'm not sure if, Chris, have you also done this thing?
Depends on what the thing is. You're going to have to be a bit more specific. Oh, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so Chris and I have both read issue 50 of the Sonic IDW series, and it's real good. It's real good.
If for all of you who haven't read it yet, whatever the hell date it is, by the time you hear this episode, it just came out recently. It is a good one. It's nice. It's, it's a Sonic issue 50 that's good, as Bobby Schroeder pointed out. It's nice to have that.
Hey, yes, nice to have a 50th issue of Sonic that is just, well, I'm going to say it, objectively good in every way, at least compared to the other Sonic 50s we've got.
And what I'm talking about specifically is, as also they said, Sonic the Hedgehog titled comic specifically. Yeah. Sonic Universes 50 was good. STC 50, that's a classic. But you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Endgame is bad. It's fine. It's fine. It's a non-controversial statement in my neck of the woods. But
yeah, there's a terrible ending to that part of the MCU.
That's neither here nor there. No, I have not got up to that yet. I'm a trade paperback guy, so maybe by the time this episode comes out, the trade will be out. But I have seen some highlights, and it seems like, I'm very excited. I did. I ordered 2 variants of the cover that I'm going to mount on my wall because they're beautiful and from my favorite artists. Shout outs to John Gray and Evan Stanley, who, I love them. They're so good. I love those variants too. So I'm excited to catch up with those issues and all of Imposter Syndrome, and so I can have the full package.
It's real good, and I'm looking forward to when we can discuss them more in depth.
Oh yeah.
How about you, Jake? Did you do anything Sonic-y?
Yes, I have not read issue 50 because I think I mentioned before, I usually wait till my local library has them available digitally, and then I just read through it that way. But from the sound of it, I'm looking forward to reading it. However, I did do something sort of Sonic-y recently. First of all, I've gone back to playing Sonic Mania on the Switch recently because it's been a little while since I played, and that's just such a good game. But that's not the main thing. As of recording yesterday, I turned 32. Woo!
Whoa!
Yay!
Oh, you are a baby compared to us.
And so on my birthdays, my fiance really, really enjoys just like themed birthdays and parties in general. If she had more time, she would do it as much as she could, really. But this year, she wanted to try to do something at least somewhat Sonic related. So the morning of my birthday, she comes in and starts playing like this just random Spotify playlist of like different remixes of Green Hill Zone, and she hands me a package, and I open it up, and
it's the severed head of Jaleel White.
No. She got me adult Heelys.
Oh my goodness.
so I can roll around at the speed of sound.
Soap shoes for the new generation.
I love it.
My brother in Christ, she is a keeper.
Yes. Yeah. Like I told like 3 or 4 people like, so I know she's supposed to be my wife forever and ever because she got me adult Heelys.
I love
That's
that.
beautiful.
Thank you for
Yes.
sharing.
I figured out how to like get the wheels into the heels. That's a fun thing to say now that I actually said it out loud. And I went to the kitchen and like tried to like just kind of play around with it and like feel balance, and I almost totally wiped out. But
Yeah, that's the
Now-
stuff.
I was gonna say that now that you are getting deeper into your 30s, just know that if you do fall, you will probably never be able to get back up. So be very careful.
Yep.
well, I feel it because I also went bowling for my birthday last night, and like it was a ton of fun, but I'm feeling it in different joints and stuff today.
Oh yeah.
But I am determined to get good at not only balancing, but like straight up like skating around on those Heelys so that I can just record like a 5-second video of me like entering frame left, exiting frame right, and having the sound of rolling around at the speed.
Oh, I wish you the most luck imaginable.
I wish you the least amount of injuries possible if you can help it.
Thank you.
I hope if you wipe out, you at least get it on tape so we can watch.
Yes. And also to mention, a friend of mine got me another Sonic related gift for my birthday, which is super cool. It's one of those 3D lamps, like the acrylic. It's like the acrylic like cutout of Sonic, and it's got like the LED that changes colors underneath.
Oh, yeah, I know those.
Yeah.
Those cool laser cut. Yeah, those are neat.
Yeah, so I have it like right here, like on my desk, and it's just going through all this right now, so I can really feel the Sonic energy as we do this podcast.
The good vibes.
Actually, why am I not wearing my Heelys for this podcast?
Because you don't need to move.
Good point.
Yeah, but if you need to go to the bathroom, you could do it really fast, so that would be helpful in that respect.
Ain't no rest in this room.
Ha
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that's my Sonic-y thing.
All right.
Nice.
Happy birthday to me.
Yes, a very
And
happy
no one
birthday. No,
And no one
absolutely
else.
not. All right. Well, I think now it's time for our main topic, which is going to be Sonic compilations today.
Let's do it.
The first thing we realized when putting all this together is that there are quite a lot of these. But we decided to narrow it down to
Yeah, but basically just the ones with Sonic in the title.
Yes. And some brief mentions of the other ones, because again, there are a lot. But yeah, there were lots of traditional compilations, which just put existing Sonic games on like one cart for the Mega Drive Genesis. There are a lot of those. A bunch with like Sonic 1 and 2 and Mean Bean Machine. Sometimes they'd throw in Spinball in there. There's a couple for the Game Gear, even a couple for the GBA, which I think only include Sonic Spinball. So that is a unique.
So I did look into this. There's one for the Genesis that came out. It's Sonic Classics or Sonic Compilation in Europe. It's 1, 2, and Mean Bean Machine. I actually do own this one.
Nice.
And
Oh, that's the one with the funny Robotnik art where he's scratching his head as the beams are
Yes.
falling down. Yes, I like that one.
Only over here, though, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, we get different arts over here. It's fine. It's those games as they are. So, if you're looking for an authentic experience, that's as good a choice as any. I did check. If you lock on, it only gets you Blue Sphere. You can't do Knuckles and Sonic 2.
Yeah.
I guess it's acknowledging the Sonic 1.
Yeah, since Sonic 1 is like the first one on the list, it just immediately defaults to that. Sonic 2 and 1 on Game Gear is basically just Sonic 2 and Sonic Spinball, and you switch between the games by power cycling the Game Gears, which is weird, but okay. And then there are literally count them, 6 different Sonic themed 2-in-1 games for GBA. They're all different combinations of Sonic Battle, Sonic Advance, and Sonic Pinball Party, with some Choo Choo Rocket and Columns Crown and occasionally. And then I think there's also another 2-in-1 that's just Choo Choo and Columns. So...
yeah, I think we might have mentioned in our pinball episode back then that the 2-in-1 packages were one of the only ways to get.
Pinball Party was only at Target on its own.
That still throws me for a loop. Like, no wonder people don't know about that game, compared to others.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are really just, again, it's games shoved onto a cartridge. Some of them have cute little menus, like the Mega Drive compilations. There's actually a video, I think, a couple of us watched by Mykonos fan who goes into a lot of these compilations and at least shows those menus off and talks briefly about those. But we want to focus on like the main collections, directly put out by Sega to consolidate these Sonic games, the classic Sonic games for a new generation or a new console, or some of these first ones, like a different platform altogether, like the PC, which was a burgeoning game platform in of itself back in the the 90s.
I think it's worth pointing out, like, for the people who are coming into this and being like, how are you going to sell me on listening to a whole podcast episode about compilation games? Because every game, there are so many compilation games where it's just like the ones we just talked about, where it's just, here's a basic menu, here are the games, you get them all in one thing, you get to play them. That doesn't sound very exciting. But you are mistaken. There is a rabbit hole here of Sonic compilations, because they get quite exciting and interesting for nerds like us.
Well, especially like interesting to do this like in this, the year of our Lord 2022, because there is some information about a few of these that has only come to light like very recently, like this first one we're going to mention, which is the Sonic and Knuckles collection, which came out on the personal computer in 1997, also famously bundled with Sonic the Screensaver, which I remember, I think I've shared this before, but remember getting this at a Walmart, on sale, and it blue screened my family's Windows 95 computer.
Oh, no.
So the only aspect of it I ever played was the Sonic the Screensaver portion. I say played. It was, you watch the fun animations and look at all the art and play the music. Because, yes, I was too scared to try and play the game in case it, broke our computer.
Understandable. Like, I had this game, but I didn't have Sonic the Screensaver because I got it in a 4-pack with Sega Smash Pack 2, Sonic CD, and Sonic R.
Yep.
For PC. Because Sega was actually doing a lot of like Windows ports back in the day. There was a Windows port of 3D Blast as well, which is one of the ones I had. But this one's interesting for one very specific reason. It's Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but the Sonic 3 music, this was the first instance we heard the alternate tracks for several of the zones, Casino Night, Ice Cap, Launch Base. And back then, we just thought it was like a weird thing. Maybe they did it, as time went on, we're like, oh, well, maybe they replaced it because they already knew that like the Michael Jackson stuff might be an issue. So they preemptively changed that. And it wasn't until years later that we realized, oh, wait, this is a lot more complicated than we realized.
Which I do just want to say right now, and I'll even put a clip in it right here.
Like with Stranger in Moscow, he called me over at 10th. We were in Moscow performing, and he's all depressed with what was going on with him, and he calls me at 10:30 in the morning. I go knock on his door, and I had under my arm a cassette player. I had been doing all the Sega Sonic the Hedgehog cues. Because the way Michael works is he'll tell Sega he'll do it, and then he says, Brad, you do it, right? So I think we did one cue together with Michael, one, and the rest I had to do it myself.
Now we know that these alternate tracks, although not in MIDI form, which they are for this collection, just
just
mostly
general MIDI, basic sequencing, the kind of stuff I would make on Anvil Studio, it's for playing against Sonic.
I want to say it was probably for hardware reasons back in the day, but that these compositions were the original intended tracks for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Before Mr. Brad Buxer, who was he's listed in the Sonic 3 and Knuckles credits. He was a frequent collaborator with Michael Jackson, and less than 2 or 3 months ago, as of this recording, a video clip interview of him surfaced where he just straight up says like, oh yeah, Michael got signed on to work on Sonic 3 and just asked me to do all the music. And that is what happened. So, yep, that's why Ice Cap is Hard Times. And we'll probably still never know the exact reasons why Sega could not work everything out. That's why that music is no longer in, modern releases. But so hilarious. Like, people were talking about a tweet Yuji Naka made in English about Michael Jackson music in Sonic 3 when months before that Brad Buxer just came out and said it. Like decades of speculation, and my man just says, oh no, it was all me. Yeah.
He just tweeted it out.
Yeah. But yes, I think this is where most people first heard those alternate tracks, and yeah, like you said, like I remember back in the day, like downloading the MIDI versions, it's just thinking, oh, that's weird. It doesn't sound like my Genesis versions, but oh well, I am a child and do not understand the complexities of this issue yet.
Yeah, and like you said, it's probably a hardware thing. Like there were no, none of the little samples made it into the game, and all the tracks that had them did not carry over. So I'm guessing that was the biggest reason why they used those specific tracks instead of, the ones from the final version of the game.
So we know now, like, basically what we assumed was a replacement is literally what they had on hand ahead of time. So that's pretty cool. Like, well, oh no, we don't have music. Good thing we've got music. We didn't know, because they never tell us these things.
Of course, now if somebody asks you, what do you think of the original Sonic 3 tracks, you have no idea what they're talking about.
Yes. I was about to say it kind of lessens the blow of it, not having Ice Cap launch bass. Like I still like those songs a lot, but also knowing that like the original tracks were always there. Like, if the partnership with Michael Jackson, Brad Buxer, like hadn't happened, like we would have gotten these versions. So it's, I want to talk about it more when we get to like Origins and the later releases. But like just these Sonic games have this weird thing of like, of the idea of the original versions being preserved for the future, and that there are lots of original versions of these games, so that little part of me that just says like, oh, we'll just make it like the originals so everybody can play them, and it's much more complicated than you would think. But I think it's very interesting, and it makes me kind of kind of mellow out and not be, have such a knee-jerk reaction when something is different, which I know was easy to have. But yeah, what a way to start that off with Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where there are lots of big differences, like all of the music. I do, before we move on from this, want to mention that there is a tool, I think it's just straight up linked on, if you look up the Sonic Retro page for the Sonic 3 Knuckles collection, but you can still find it, that lets you play these older PC releases on modern Windows systems. I used it on my Windows Virtual Machine to be able to play some of Sonic 3 and Knuckles collection, or the Sonic and Knuckles collection, excuse me. But it also works for, I believe, Sonic CD, Sonic 3D Blast, and the Echo the Dolphin, the port of the first game, which apparently a lot of people really like. That I think it's even different different from the Sega CD version in some ways.
Interesting.
Like, unfortunately, if you try to play without the tool, it's like, these games were built for hardware specs that were so much lower. So if you try to play on a faster PC, it's just going to be like completely unplayable just because everything moves at a gajillion miles an hour.
Yeah, I think the tool specifically helps setting a limit on that frame rate, and I think you can even tweak stuff like even how the music outputs, so those, it's still MIDI, but it sounds much better on modern hardware, which is cool. Hey, I always want to take the time to point out like cool fan projects that preserve stuff like this, like weird PC ports of Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
And because people will get angry if we don't mention it, yes, this was part of the Sonic and Garfield pack. Let's move on.
Yes. We've all seen
the
that
crossover we all waited for.
It's very funny. So yeah, moving on to if I'm reading this right, the same year, Sonic Jam on the ill-fated Sega Saturn.
Pour one out for the homies.
Yep, this next to Sonic R, this is the closest we got to a proper 3D classic Sonic. And even then, that is just the wrapping around the museum media gallery of this game. But something I did not learn until I think you told me, Luke, going into this game, and which is very hard to emulate because nobody... I'm going to take a firm stance that nobody should spend the ludicrous amount of money to buy a Sega Saturn and a copy of Sonic Jam. No. Just if they're curious.
I do see one in our local CEX downtown, and I always like, oh, but what if? No.
Apparently, the Japanese copy is a lot easier to get your hands on.
Huh.
That is one thing I did not look up. I guess I could, again, just pull up the Sonic Retro page like we always do, see what like the differences are, because before we dive into the games, the big thing that people who probably never touched Sonic Jam knows is the Sonic World, little, I guess you'd call it a mini game, because there is some little time trial ring collecting things. But it's just a tiny little level where you play as a 3D classic Sonic. It's very similar to the little spiky Sonic R model, where you just run around and there's little buildings where you can go look at art. Again, some Sonic the Screensaver art, which is a reoccurring theme in a lot of these connections. Not that I'm complaining; it's very pretty. But also, a movie theater to where they included the Sonic CD opening and ending. I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, this is a region difference I'd like to know. Is it the US soundtrack in the...
it is the Japanese soundtrack in all releases.
Okay, because that changes in future collections.
Yeah.
That was another thing is, they couldn't get Sonic CD, which was, notoriously hard to emulate or port. But yeah, this was the first time they included the opening and ending. Some other videos is lots of really cool Japanese commercials with, again, going to insert some clips, but some wild narrators. I love it.
Mega Drive から Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Welcome to Sonic Land メガドライブから世界へ向けて Non-stop power play Sonic the Hedgehog 3 from Mega Drive ソニックが超音速で弾け飛ぶピンボールゲームに挑戦だアメリカ生まれのファンキーアクションソニックスピンボールメガドライブからソニックビンゴプレゼント実施中
Yeah.
Lots of fun English phrases tossed in there that really hammer home that 90s Sonic attitude. And a commercial for the Sonic OVA, which, we would not get over here at all for like 2, almost 3 more years. I could not imagine like getting this as a kid and watching the trailer for this and just stewing, thinking, whoa, a Sonic movie that I can't see? Why not? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is like all of this. I never got to play this when I was younger because I actually had a Saturn, but I didn't have this. But I feel like for many Western fans, this was kind of like the first glimpse at Japanese Sonic that we hadn't actually seen because there's so much of it here.
In a lot of ways, yeah. And like the whole reason this game exists is because at that time, Sonic has never been as big in Japan as it was in the West. And with, the Saturn actually did pretty well in Japan, but, Sonic Team's putting out games for the Saturn, and apparently fans are writing into them being like, yeah, who's this Sonic guy in your name? And they're like, oh, we need to do something to like build brand awareness of Sonic. So we're going to put out this game that makes the original Genesis games accessible for all the new Saturn fans who did not have a Genesis growing up.
Yeah, that was another thing that I did not know until playing this for a little bit myself, that these games are not emulated. The original titles were reprogrammed specifically to run natively on the Saturn hardware. And from my experience, again, the Saturn is very hard to emulate. I managed to just get it working. There was a few issues like, there's some drift on the control stick playing Sonic World, but the games themselves seem to run like pretty okay. The only issues I ran into were, I think some music cues are different, which is, I think you also mentioned, Luke, probably because it was running off a CD. Right. So anytime like music has to flow naturally from like getting speed shoes or invincibility, that they have to switch to a different track instead of naturally, which it's different. It's, I wouldn't say it's unforgivable. There's a few sound effects are different, that just, it does spike that little bit of my brain to where I'm like, that's not right. But again, they also seem to run like pretty okay. And it has like the full lock-on features for Sonic 3 and Knuckles with like a cool 3D cartridge that asks you, when you select it from the menu, like which title you want to lock on with, including, Sonic 1 to get that blue sphere, which was not called Blue Sphere yet. That comes later.
And they even did like some touch-ups to the game as well. Like there's 3 different difficulties: normal, easy, and original. Original is basically everything as it was on the Genesis. Normal is more or less the same, except they've done some bug fixes, like the fixing the spike bug in Sonic 1 and like adding some little helper things every once in a while, like fixing some problem areas. And then easy is just adding in a bunch of extra like little platforms and stuff to cover up some bottomless pits and
cutting down the stages significantly. Like it's just like one act of each level, and in Sonic 2 it just completely strips out Wing Fortress and giving you rings on like Death Egg and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing though is that this is the first time that we got the spin dash in Sonic 1, which would become like a staple of Sonic 1 re-releases. And apparently Yuji Naka programmed that in himself, even though he was already like in a producer role and not actively working on the games anymore.
Oh, he's George Lucasing that shit. I see.
Yes.
A little bit.
Well, I did want to point out that this is definitely the first official compilation that seems like this was, like you already mentioned, this was specifically to introduce people to these older Sonic games that maybe have never touched them before, but with some modern quality of life improvements. Like, it really does seem like now, looking back, that the spin dash was something that if somebody had brought it up and it was possible, like at the original time of development, they would have put it in Sonic 1. Like, there's so many areas in Sonic 1 to where, even if I'm playing like the original version with, just a straight emulation, I'm like, oh yeah, the spin dash isn't in here. And, it seems like they always wanted something like that.
Yeah, and apparently it took some doing to get done, because the whole thing is that if you go beyond the border of the screen, which is likely to happen with the spin dash, it will just kill you. So they had to, do some wizardry to make that not happen.
Be careful in those tunnels in Green Hill Zone.
Yep. Definitely tapped into the full power of blast processing for Sonic 2, where that is a feature, not a bug, of running off that screen. But it's very fascinating. It really it threw my whole brain for a loop just to think about how that this started back then. That this was again, it's less about like a museum preserving the original forms of these games, and more like they are kind of continuously going back and adding things. And like I said, there are people who, and I don't disagree. I don't think these games are that preservation should be the number one priority, for a lot of game companies. But, I think as long as those original versions exist somewhere, that I think that makes these okay. But yeah, Sonic Jam it was real fun. It's got a lot of, like the aforementioned Sonic World, like it has a sound test with all the music. A couple of the other videos, this is where that Man of the Year short is sourced from. Yep. And also the weird a Sonic Ride 3D animated thing, which is literally, I think the description is like unreleased Sonic 3D animation, which is super weird, but also a very fun oddity.
Well, for myself, in preparation for this episode, I only knew a little bit about Sonic Jam, and so it was interesting to watch a long play of it. I mostly watched the 3D stuff because pretty familiar with the original 3 games, but I'd only seen a little bit of the 3D stuff before, so it was really cool to kind of watch a lot of it, and especially I actually had never seen the Man of the Year short before, so that was just a cute little thing to watch. And I really like the super polygonal 3D spiky model of Sonic in that little Sonic Hub world, and that would be kind of like with the way that Sonic Mania kind of brought back that sort of look for the special stages. I think it'd be fun to see that pop up every now and again and as a little bonus content or something in future Sonic games, because that's just I like how just blocky and spiky it is. It looks cool.
Low poly Sonic is a thing.
I love how the 3D model, the spikes extend when you're running at top speed.
Oh, yeah.
Just a great little artistic touch.
It really does make me think of in an alternate universe where the Saturn was a smash success and Sega didn't already have, I think you said, Chris, one foot in the grave by the time it came out, that you could have seen them releasing and we know that there's prototype footage out there, seen them releasing Sonic Adventure on the Saturn. And, because playing the Sonic World, you pull that camera out just a little bit more and, make it so you can see more of where you're running. And man, that's a Sonic adventure. I feel like that, yes, there is, like I said, some other universe where that happened. And I'd be interested to see this aesthetic brought back in more Sonic things eventually.
But I guess for now, this was just the testing ground.
Yep.
For a 3D Sonic that wasn't Sonic 3D.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a Sonic 3D in name only, which I still go to bat for that director's cut that makes that game a little more enjoyable. But yes, this Sonic World I think was literally a proof of concept of how Sonic would work in a 3D environment fully.
I would love to see somebody try to rebuild Sonic World in a newer engine, basically just for funsies, just to see how well it would run on a newer system.
Sega hired this man.
It feels like something fans would do.
I was going to say, Jake, beyond just dropping that little low polygon model into an Unreal 5. Ray tracing coming off of his quills.
That would look so cool, actually. Low poly blocky Sonic, but with ray tracing.
I would love to see... Oh, sorry, you were saying...
No, I was going to say, hey, they have done that with the Nintendo 64 decomps, the Super Mario 64, I think the Ocarina of Time, putting that ray tracing in those games, and it looks pretty cool.
I would love to see that low poly early CG looking Sonic in a realistic environment. So it'll be the closest thing we get to that proposed Sonic movie, Sonic and the Wonders of the World.
Oh, yes. Goodness. Yep. Instead of whatever horrible puppet or early CG animation they decided to use.
I think it was going to be a real bad CG, and it would it would have been a Sonic movie, kinda.
Yep. Like I said, in some alternate universe out there. But yep, after Sonic Jam, God, it is so interesting to see, to actually look at the years, because when I think Sonic Jam 1997 and then looking at Sonic Mega Collection was only in 2002, which now that I'm older and the passage of time seems like, some horrible beast clinging to my back constantly. But I know at the time that from 1997 to 2002 was like an eternity as a younger child.
For sure.
Yes.
Because, in between that, you have the Dreamcast and the fall of the Dreamcast and the near death of Sega. And then they shifted all engine power to getting these games out on other platforms, again, to introduce people who might not have played them yet, specifically like Nintendo fans on the GameCube. But
that's how it all started, really, was shifting everything onto like the GameCube, essentially. The GameCube and Game Boy Advance, because this was like, you had Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, you had this Mega Collection, and you had, like, Sonic Advance. Like, everything was, like, the console wars were over forever, and now Sonic is working for the enemy, and this is sort of their way of being like, well, you've got fans, maybe they can become Sonic fans.
I think Mega Collection came out before Advance 2, is that correct?
Yes. I know it came out before Advance 2 because it has a trailer for it with music that didn't show up in the final game.
Yes, that's what I was going to say, is I think this is the first official appearance of Cream the Rabbit because it predates Advance 2 and Adventure DX.
That's correct.
So the clip art that they include of Cream is her first debut, also before Sonic Heroes. But yeah, Sonic Mega Collection, which is a Genesis Mega Drive compilation of all the classic Sonic games. All of them, because it includes Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, all of the lock-ons, including the first official naming of the Blue Sphere special stages, and also Sonic 3D Blast or Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, depending on your region, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and then a couple of other bonus games, which unfortunately you're missing out on some other Sega Technical Institute games unless you have the Japanese version, because you also have Flicky, which is we talked about this one in our arcade game episode, retroactively a Sonic game, and then this is the Genesis port, and also Ristar, which was also I believe a Sonic Team game, or at least mostly worked on Sonic Team folks.
I thought it was called Ristar.
Nope. The official pronunciation, as dictated,
by one
is
shot.
Ristar. Like, by one shot. Yes, exactly. The true authority. But no, I remember finally which, let me just say, I like Sonic Mega Collection. It's a very pretty compilation. The way to unlock these games is the stupidest crap.
Yes, it is.
100%.
You have to boot up these games like 20, 30. I think in the case of some of the extra ones, like boot up 4 games 20 times each, and that is just ridiculous. They should have cut that by literally 1/10. Like 3 times is enough.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But yes, this was the first time that I have ever heard of Ristar, and I remember very much enjoying it. It's a great little bonus to throw in here. And then the Japanese version of Mega Collection also includes Comic Zone and Ooze, or the Ooze.
The Ooze.
Yes, which again, both Sega Technical Institute games.
Both American games, only on the Japanese version,
Yes. Very, very weird that they would just not include those in the other versions, but I think a prevailing force is that whoever is at the top of Sega making these decisions has, oh boy, I don't like them. I'll just say that up front, and that'll also come back later.
I have to assume it was an ESRB thing, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, could be, but I like. Sonic Mega Collection has a lot of nostalgia. I think a lot of people share because the music just from these menus shows up in a lot of like, your favorite Sonic tracks. And I know this was probably the first time that I went into those, the extras, and was able to see a lot of the bonus videos. Again, the Sonic CD opening and ending is included, although again, it's the PC version and it's only the American soundtrack. And which is another thing, another weird thing is because they don't include like the full credits roll, this is another version of both of these where the timing is different and shows up basically over and over. Is every version of Sonic CD has almost different timing or some like different, version of the music or missing sound effects to where like it's hard to even say there's an original version, because if you want to be technical, like the Sega Mega CD version is the one that's all cropped and squished and filtered to fit on that hardware. And again, it just kind of throws me for a loop thinking like, oh man, there's maybe a best version out there, but is there an original version? It's weird, but does go in theme with like presenting these in the best way for a modern audience at the time.
Jeremy, I am so glad you brought up the bonus videos because we have to talk about some things.
Yes, I was about to say, I know you've got some things to share with these compilations, and go ahead before we talk about the games themselves. Yes, go right ahead about what could have been.
So, we were talking about they've got a fair amount of bonus content. They've got an entire gallery of every Archie Sonic comic cover up to that point.
That's how I discovered the Archie Sonic comics for the first time.
They have the entire Sonic First Super Sonic special fully readable, which is rad. I do find it funny that they had to censor out a bunch of characters from those comic covers because, like, the Image Comics crossover, they have to censor out all of those.
And the Galactus parody.
Yeah. Originally, the Sonic CD intro and ending were not among the bonus videos because they were working on putting Sonic CD in, period, as a playable game. And apparently, it got relatively far along. We actually discovered a prototype a few years back that had Sonic CD at least in the menu, text description and everything. Unfortunately, emulation issues and space issues prevented that from happening. But even at that phase, they still weren't going to have the intro and ending in the bonus video gallery, but they did have two other videos in there. From this prototype, I'm going to send you a picture. I want you to read exactly what those first two entries on that list say.
No way!
Interesting.
What? Oh my God. Now this is, you weeks ago said that I've discovered something that I don't think you guys know yet. And I said, don't tell me until the show.
As I said, had this made it in, I think it would have drastically changed the conversation around that.
Oh man. And I mean, for clarification, yes, audio medium, Sonic the Hedgehog the Movie Part 1 and Sonic the Hedgehog the Movie Part 2 with the description Sonic OVA, which was created in Japan. So you're telling me that they plan to include some full versions of these?
Yes.
Apparently.
Man.
That is certainly what it indicates. And I think that if the OVA had been like accessible to that degree where like basically everybody who bought Sonic Mega Collection had this copy of the OVA available to them, I think it would have much more mind share in the modern Sonic fandom than it does even today.
Wow,
right.
yeah. And I'm assuming, because this is after it was, dubbed and released by ADV over here, that this could have been the English dub, but preserving the split up nature of the original, 2 parts.
It's very possible.
Man, like I said, in another place, another world, that would have been wild. And yeah, it would have been exactly everybody who had Mega Collection could have been able to see the Sonic movie and not just, whoever picked up a VHS or a reprinted DVD at the time. Wow. That was, I assume it was definitely probably space issues, even if you compressed the hell out of those,
almost certainly.
Fitting a full, 75 minutes or so, give or take. onto a little GameCube disc. Man, what could have been?
I might be reaching here, but if the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA movie had been able to get on this, I feel like this would have been like one of the most successful compilation just games in general ever. Because I feel like it would have just, it would have been the Wii. It would have printed money.
Yeah, or you would have had people say, especially because I know this sold very well, and I think made it onto like the, the Nintendo Player's Choice
for sure.
$20 back in the day, is that people would say, oh yeah, you never seen that? Was on Mega Collection, or you can borrow my copy or go get one or whatever. Yeah. Oh man, that is what a surprise. That's
so cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, these other extras, are they, I'm presuming it, because the other extras list Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, I'm assuming that's like a video for it.
That's just a trailer for Adventure 2 Battle and a trailer for Advance 2. Again.
So what's the Sonic secret file? That seems ominous.
I assume that's just a rename of the History of Sonic video that made it into the final version. I could be wrong.
I just love how strange, like mysterious it is. The Sonic secret file that they don't want you to read.
It's included on this official collection. That History of Sonic video is a little weird. I think it's even in the description, it's specified that it was for like a presentation at some conference that just a quick. I think it's only a couple minutes that just goes through like the Sonic timeline.
Yeah, basically everything up to Adventure 2, but it's mostly just a couple of highlights and then a quick list of every game. That's about it.
I think the Adventure 2 Battle one also includes like footage of the intro they did special for the GameCube version, which was probably very exciting at the time.
Yeah. I did also see that at one point they were planning to put Vector Man and Wonder Boy 3 onto this compilation, as well as at one point, they were trying to find the original Sonic 1 prototype to put in there.
Oh, yeah, Yuji Naka said he wanted to get that on there.
They couldn't find it in time.
Can you imagine? We'd have got that early.
Now, that is also, I've seen lots of people echo that yes, put more like prototypes and betas and documentation of like older games, like release that officially because people love it. It's always educational, and it's so cool to see like the process for that.
It's fascinating to finally see the game footage of the things we'd see in the magazines, like, before the games came out.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what happened with the Sonic 3 prototype, where we're seeing, like, oh, Hydra City actually had, like, grass in the background and stuff. I remember that.
Yep, and the games themselves, I think as far as I mentioned it already, if you're looking to experience the original games, and I do want to say none of us are experts on emulation or the programming that goes into these games. Those people are definitely out there, and I'm sure also have documented down to the last line of code, like differences and stuff like that. But the games in Sonic Mega Collection feel very solid. I played through all these collections. I basically just ran through the first zone or a couple of that, and did the special stages just to be able to use my muscle memory to tell what's different and what's not. And I think Mega Collection is probably the most solid way to experience those games in a fairly original package.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like me and you're playing it on your Wii U with some custom firmware that lets you play GameCube games that also have extra features like being able to get the correct aspect ratio and progressive scans so the games look pretty crisp. But this is a real solid compilation. I'm happy to see that it holds up, that I didn't boot it up and they run terribly and I just didn't remember. But yeah, even even Mean Bean Machine, Sonic 3D, Sonic Spinball, which is also in there, feel really good. Look really good in this collection. Yeah. And like we've already said, that the menus and the whole wrapper, it's hard to even describe. There's lots of like gears and like floating monitors and it's just, I really like it. Even the silly stock sound effect that plays whenever you flip a page of a paper rustling, which I think is also the sound used in a lot of Resident Evil games. But yeah, literally just like paper flip dot wav.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, for me especially, because Luke, you might be able to share in this with me because you said you got this for Christmas, and I think I got this for Christmas as well. Like, Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube was it's very important to me specifically because, like, that's how I played the majority of, like, older Sonic games. Like, that's how I played Sonic 1 into, like, all the way through. And especially that was not the first time, but it was like the main way that I played Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Cause I wanted to mention this back when we were talking about the PC Sonic and Knuckles collection, but I remember my parents had gotten me, like, Sonic 3 and Knuckles on like a disc at like Office Max. And so that's how I played it on the PC, like, when I was a little kid. But like, this is how I played the old school games. This is how I played, like, Sonic 3D and Ristar and Flicky. And I mentioned, like, when we were talking about Sonic CD, like, I would boot this game up sometimes just to watch the Sonic CD intro over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And just like, I have so many good memories with this. And I think I can make a jumping off point with that, saying that, like, I think that's the important thing about, like, releasing compilation games every now and then, because, like, even if, like, you technically were of the age where you could grow up with some of these games, you know, finances are different for different people and their families. And compilations like this, like, we have our little tagline in our outline saying the best of the best for one low price. Like, that's a perfect way to describe this. Like, you get so many extremely good quality games, and like Jeremy said, they all play extremely great. And compilations like this are such a fantastic way to not only continue interest, but especially, I think the main thing is to bring in new people who didn't have a chance to play those games at first, and now they have the chance to play, like, 7-8 games all at the same time.
Yeah. I agree.
Sure.
For me, it's interesting for me because obviously this was not my first experience of the old classic Sonic games, because I was around since almost the beginning. That's depressing. But this is sort of my way of, like, reintroducing myself to them in a way, because I hadn't played my Mega Drive in a long time. So when this was first out, I have very fond memories of playing this, like shoving it in the GameCube and playing some classic Sonic all over again. And it was a lovely experience, especially with all, like, the music and the presentation and you just get really into it in a way that I probably don't in games anymore, because I'm an old man now, and this sort of thing, like, the thought of sitting down and actually, like, absorbing yourself in a game is an alien concept to me a lot of the time. But when I think back to this, I think back to, like, you know, having, like, my tiny little CRT TV screen up in the corner of the room and playing some old Sonic and being like, yes, life is good, and I hope it continues to be this way. I'm pretty sure I said that sentence exactly.
Yeah, I like I said, I try and come back to that thought that it is easy for me to kind of take for granted that I've grown up with all of these games and also this technology. And, you know, it is, and I always want to plug that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it near the end, that some of these games, like, the best way is, like, ROM hacks and, like, fan stuff that has put, you know, fan compilations together, these games, but that not everyone is going to do that. And that there is a difference between someone who is, like, apathetic and doesn't want to learn, and someone, like you said, Jake, literally doesn't have access to, like, a computer that runs stuff like this. And that these official compilations that, you know, there's still a discussion to be had about, like, accessibility and whatnot, but that, like, especially, you know, I've worked at several electronics departments at department stores, and, like, people that would come in just completely exasperated and not knowing, like, what games do I get for my kid? He has an Xbox, or, you know, he has a GameCube or whatever. And these are all usually, like, the easiest ones to go and say, like, well, do they know who Sonic is? Or are they interested in Sonic? Have they ever played it? And these are easy recommends, because I like these games as a kid. And I think, you know, give credit to new generations. I think they still like these games too, is why they've stuck around for so long.
Bit weird though that it's got like modern Sonic art on the cover and all the art. I get why.
Yeah.
At the time, everything else was modern Sonic. Everything else they were trying to sell on the Nintendo consoles was modern Sonic. But these are the classic games, so it kind of threw me off a little bit. But it's fine.
It is funny to see that as a we were talking about this in the pre-show, to see that kind of continue with these mid 2000s compilations, and then think about modern Sonic almost overcorrecting into where, you know, classic Sonic is his own separate universe, not allowed to interact with modern Sonic anymore. Oh, it is. I don't know. Is funny the right word? It's something is what it is.
There is an emotion that I register with it, but I don't know if I really want to approach it right now.
I know. There's probably some German word that perfectly describes it.
Oh, thanks, Germany. You always have the right answer. Let me look that up.
Oh. Staying in the Mega Collection lane for a little bit is Mega Collection Plus, which was the release on the PS2, the Xbox, and the PC, which is not that different. It has all the same Sonic games for the most part, but adds some Game Gear games and then some extra...
it basically adds back the 2 games that were Japan only originally, and then adds the Game Gear versions of Sonic 1, Sonic Chaos, Sonic Drift 1, Mean Bean Machine, Sonic Labyrinth, and Sonic Blast.
Yep. And I think I have not put hands on Mega Collection Plus personally. I read the PS2 version might have a few extra hitches to the emulation compared to the other platforms, but this also seems pretty solid. This was where they decided to redo the menus. It used different menus altogether. Compared to again, it's hard to even describe the Mega Collection menus unless you've seen them.
Little floating orbs and like monitors that sort of bobble around the place, and you kind of select these flashing little joyful things, and it takes you to another world. And it's good. This one's all right though.
Yeah, it's a lot of like
it's a little more safe.
It's streamlined, yeah.
Floating clip art and like video loops running in the background, and still some very nice music and stuff like that. But yeah, it is hard not to miss the original menus. And again, this seems a very solid package. I think even the Game Gear emulation is pretty good. Even blown up on a TV, it is hard to get used to that, especially the like Sonic 1 and in future collections Sonic 2, that cut off ratio to where you really can barely see what's in front of you. But yeah, we definitely covered on when we visited those games, like the best ways to play those. And Game Gear might not be it, but still a very solid collection. This was also one that showed up in the many PC collections during the 2000s.
Yeah, for sure. They did make some changes here and there beyond that. One of the big things is that all of the games now support save states, that's pretty cool, honestly.
Oh yeah, because
that's a big one.
I was playing Mega Collection Plus on the PS2 just last night, and I was like, I only wanted to play a little bit of it to refresh myself, and I was like, oh yeah, there are save states in there, so that was really handy. I will say, in my experience of playing Sonic Mega Collection Plus on the PS2, I'm going to be totally upfront and saying I was playing it on an HD TV with it had composite cables, so red, yellow, white, so there's some lag input already there. But I was playing Sonic 3 last night, and it seemed like there was a lot of lag in between my inputs when playing that on the PS2. I don't know if that was just specifically my case or not. I don't know if people have reported that over and over, but I thought that was worth mentioning on my end.
That is one of those technical things that I'm not an expert on, but know that like, like people like to throw around like, oh, pixel art designed for CRT TVs. Like, oh, it was always meant to look like this. And every CRT was different. You can't really make that blanket statement. It seems the opposite with modern TVs is the picture is mostly the same, but especially with older things, like you said, with non-HDMI, without having that programmed in mind that, yeah, some of these older consoles, you're going to introduce things like input lag and the picture just not looking exactly the same. But yeah, that is just something you unfortunately run into. But like I mentioned with my setup, which is, a Frankenstein homebrew version of a lot of these, that again, people have compensated for that. But that is something to keep in mind. Like, it's not that it's easy to get into retro game collecting now because it's also freaking expensive. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But that don't expect to go like, oh yeah, I'll pick up a PS2 and all my favorite games and plug it into your new 4K TV and expect it to look the same.
The good thing is that a lot of, I'll say a lot of local game shops, and you can also find them online, have usually, like, one of the things that I've seen that they sell is they usually have like different connectors for different older consoles that transmit the image. Like, it plugs in the natural way into the gaming console, but then it's got an HDMI cord, like kind of transition at some point throughout the cable, so that you can plug it into a more modern TV. I've gotten one cable that I can use for either my Super Nintendo, N64, or GameCube, and I've tried it all with all of them. And as far as I could see, like, there's not really any input lag there. Like, whatever technology and whatever programming they've done to make that transition into HD, to make it, I believe it does the one that I have does 720p, but the transition's good enough where, like, there's not really any input lag. I guess if you like had a stopwatch on you, you could probably find like a second, if that. But that's a good way. Like, if you have the consoles already, and if maybe you don't have any way of plugging it into a modern TV, you could just find, like I said, either online or at a local game store. They probably sell some sort of transition cable that goes from your console to the HD screen and helps it translate better.
I have one of those for my Dreamcast, and did my research to get one that does not introduce a lot of lag, and it does not look as good as the internal HDMI mods, which require lots of soldering or paying lots of money to ship yours out to a professional that does that. That is the cool thing, is for all the consoles we've even mentioned in the last minute, like, there are HDMI mods that exist that are beautiful but require hefty investment. Yeah, those cables can get you where you need to go. It's not going to be the best, but like you said, looks good enough for me. And as long as it doesn't introduce several seconds of input lag, look really good. So that that is out there, and I'd recommend that as well. Thank you for bringing that up, Jake.
You're welcome.
It's just nice to be able to play games on modern TVs, without having to go through all these bells and whistles and hoops and such.
For sure.
And having it look just utterly terrible on some of these classic consoles.
By the way, before we're done with Sonic Mega Collection, I just wanted to point out this print ad that I read and saw in a magazine that I thought was really cool. It's always great when I bring this up on a podcast, or I bring up something from a visual medium. But
I remember this.
What a great advertisement!
I remember this one.
Yeah, I remember this.
So what we're seeing here is like a little desert island, and an actual photo of a desert island next to the beach, and there's just one Sonic ring floating in the air, and says with the text "missed one." It's great. It just gets the concept over right away.
For anybody listening, just do a Google search of like Sonic Mega Collection print ad, and you'll probably eventually find it.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this in Nintendo Power and Archie Sonic.
Oh, that's right.
This popped up in a couple of back covers, and it's a super solid ad. I love it.
It's really good.
It just shows you what games are in there, or at least the ones that you don't have to unlock right at the bottom. And God, that's really good.
I did look into like the extras in Mega Collection Plus. It's mostly the same. They added art from the games that had come out since the first one, like Heroes and Battle. But they stripped out all of the existing videos and replaced them with both finalized and in-production versions of some cutscenes from Heroes. So, like, you can see the storyboard, like an in-progress render, and then the final version of, like, the intro and the Team Dark intro.
Oh, is this where the the pre-solid lyrics version of the song? Yes, I love it. Clip of it right here. Oh, it's
Sonic
wonderful.
Hey, Johnny's still giving it his all while he's doing that.
Yes, I love it. Hell yeah. Oh, I love that. Yep. I don't think I realized when I first stumbled across that on the internet that it came from Mega Collection Plus. I think we did want to talk about Sonic Adventure DX, which came out on the GameCube after Mega Collection, which added, we have a complicated relationship with DX because a lot of the changes are not my personal preference, but they did add that mission mode and also a bunch of, I say a bunch, almost all of the...
Literally all of them.
Yeah, all of the Sonic Game Gear games are unlockable on this, and I think we can safely assume uses the same emulator as Mega Collection, and pretty solid from what I remember.
Fun fact, the first time that Sonic Drift 1 and Tails Sky Patrol were ever playable in an English release.
Yeah, and I like those games. They're a unique thing. I like how I think it might be Tails Adventure is specifically mentioned as like a prequel to Sonic 2 before Tails even met Sonic. Yep. And I just have a special place in my heart for that game, even though I don't think I've ever beat it.
I don't think I got very far, but it's nice that we've got a game starring Tails.
Yeah, Tails. Yeah. Just continue to reference and steal bits from Sonic the Comic, the podcast, because we love them so much.
Yeah, that was specifically how I played a lot of the Game Gear games for the first time, just because I didn't have access to it originally. And I think that like, having that discoverability was super cool.
Wonder why they did it, though. Like, I guess they were just adding more content to the DX version of Sonic Adventure, but they're just like, well, we've got a bunch of Game Gear ROMs we could shove on there, I guess.
Yeah.
that was before, like, the process of, like, kind of standardized re-releasing of old games had really taken off with stuff like Virtual Console or Xbox Live Arcade or whatever. So I guess it was kind of them dipping their toe in that water for the first time.
Literally no other way to play these except a Game Gear, which I'm sure everyone who had one at this point had exploded because they left old batteries in it or something.
Yeah. It was also very cool that all the games that supported 2-player, you could still play 2-player in DX just by like press the start button on the second controller and a second instance of the game would start emulating, and that's super cool.
Oh, that's neat. I don't think I've ever done that. That is super cool. Yeah, I always love that when they preserve that in classic re-releases, even on like modern stuff where, there are even instances where they add like net play.
Yeah.
And that's just super neat. That is like the true meshing of the old and new together to me. Oh, so after Sonic Adventure DX, we did get another title in the collection line. I guess you could call it a line. There's really like 2.5 if you count Plus as a separate title, but Sonic Gems Collection, again on the GameCube, but also the PS2, but only in, was it Europe and Japan?
Yep.
Which is, man, that's weird. But I'm sure that it's the original sold the best on the GameCube back in the day.
Yeah, this was a game that really kind of focused on some of the more obscure stuff in the Sonic series. Like, they obviously got the heavy hitters out with Mega Collection. So it's like, well, let's dig a little deeper into the archives, get some of the stuff that, is not as well known for this one. So the kind of 3 headliners are Sonic CD, Sonic the Fighters, and Sonic R. And then they've also got the remaining 6 Game Gear games that were not Mega Collection Plus. So that's Sonic 2, Triple Trouble, Spinball, Drift 2, Sky Patrol, and Adventure. If you played it in Japanese, you also got Bonanza Brothers and the Streets of Rage trilogy. I know explicitly that they had to take those out because of the ESRB, but it's just, I so wish.
Isn't the American version is you get the 2 Vector Man games?
Yeah, the 2 Vector Man games are in all versions, but
oh, okay.
Those 4 specifically are only in the Japanese version, which they were at least at one point planned for the American versions. Like, if you dig in the code, you can find like the English text descriptions for the menus and whatever, but what could have been?
Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, I know Streets of Rage is, a little bit of street violence, but I mean, is there some insidious content in Bonanza Brothers I don't know about?
Maybe they just didn't think people remembered it in the US, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could have had another Ristar in their hands where people were. I mean, I say that I have also never played Bonanza Brothers. Probably know them best from the Sonic All Stars Racing games.
Yep.
But yeah, that's unfortunate. That would have definitely been cool. I know lots of people like those Streets of Rage, and that Streets of Rage 4 is supposed to be pretty cool too, huh?
Oh, that game's so good.
It's awesome.
This is kind of like the weird Sonic games, essentially,
Yeah.
at first. You look at it, it's like a bunch of odd ones, like, R and CD. Because CD is still kind of an odd one. Because even compared to the original bunch, the original trilogy, it's still a bit of an out there kind of game.
Yeah.
But it almost this game almost got like even weirder. Like they were planning on bringing in some other lesser known Sonic games into this one, as I understand it.
You
really?
have no idea.
Oh,
yeah, hit us again, Luke.
Illuminate.
So I think everybody kind of assumed based on, like, one of the things this game has is, it's got the unlockable museum stuff, just like the last one. It's all have to be unlocked through, like, basically doing achievements and stuff, which is an interesting way of doing it. And it gave me incentive to actually, like, go through and do some of this stuff. But they've got full, like, artwork galleries for each of the main 3 games. But then also, for some reason, a full gallery of Knuckles Chaotix artwork, which says to me, and probably everybody else, that, they probably intended for Chaotix to be on this at one point. I have to imagine it was emulation troubles that kind of muck things up there.
I think even to this day, it's 32X is still hard to get just perfect. But again, another time, another place that I do think my limited playing of Chaotix, I understand it is another weird one. I mean, but I would also put it kind of in the same family as Sonic CD, that yes, it's weird. And I even see it is fun with the recent re-release in Origins, people just talking about whether they hate the level layouts or stuff like that. But yes, there is another alternate world where instead of CD, we could have had a similar experience with Chaotix. And I sure do hope that game gets some kind of official re-release someday, because I think there's a lot there that is worth diving into. If it was like the one part in Sonic Origins was the soundtrack, which is super good too. But yep, I imagine that they also wanted it for this one, and it just couldn't come together. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it might have been tossed around for both collection games, Mega and Gems, that they wanted somehow, or at least floated the idea of trying to get Sega Sonic Arcade.
Yeah, like we mentioned in our arcade episode, they definitely did try for it in Gems collection, but they couldn't get the trackball to work right, which, again, it would have been cool, but I get it. I don't have to be happy about it, but I get it.
Trying to play it on main, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's got to be someday somebody will crack that code and will get a decent way to play that on a modern system. I have to hope so.
Find a happy medium between control stick sensitivity settings.
But what if I told you, gentlemen, that there were 4 other games that they were planning on having in this collection, and that some remnants thereof can actually be found in the game's code?
Ooh.
I probably believe you.
Yeah, most likely.
So 3 of those games were Wonder Boy 3, 4, and 5, because they just keep trying to stick Wonder Boy into these Sonic collections for some reason.
Apparently.
Hey, those remakes are good. Those are the Wonder Boys I really like.
But arguably the most interesting one is that at one point, Sonic Eraser was going to be included in this.
Right, yeah, I think I saw that.
Wow. Yep.
One of the many attempts at making a Sonic puzzle game.
I literally played the fan translation of Eraser on my Genesis maybe a month or 2 ago, and ooh, that thing still hurts my ears. It's just
Yep.
it's
It's a weird
completely
one.
obtuse in a way that it's like, I love me some puzzle games. I just don't like that one's just weird.
There's too many complex shapes flying around. It's too mathematical.
It's like, you get these clusters of things, and it's like you try to rotate it, but you don't actually rotate the shapes. You rotate the arrangements of the like pieces inside that shape. So if you've got like a downward pointing T shape, it's still going to be a downward pointing T, but the pieces inside are going to be rearranged slightly differently. And it's like, this feels wrong somehow.
Yeah, that's already given me a headache just trying to picture it.
It's like my Tetris brain refuses to accept this.
That's the thing. The Tetris effect has affected us forever. We can't accept any others except for Puyo.
This is busting down my Mean Bean machine.
Yep. Again, the same part of me that's excited about the potential Sonic 1 prototype makes me just wish they would have thrown it in there regardless, just to have it.
In terms of extras, like the artwork is cool. Again, we get all of that Sonic the Screensaver art, more so than we even got in Jam. Couple of like early kind of design stuff, which is cool. For some reason, a bunch of screenshots of Adventure DX 2 Battle and Heroes, because why not, I guess. But I'd argue the most interesting stuff there is that you get timed demos of the Genesis games and the other Game Gear games that automatically send you to the final level, which is, it's a choice.
Yeah, I immediately saw that, if you had an action replay or, playing this on a modern emulator, that like lots of games with self-imposed timers, you can just turn them off and play the whole game. So in some way, Jim's collection might be the ultimate compilation.
The accidentally most comprehensive collection of Sonic games ever. Yeah. If you cheat.
Yep.
I remember back in the day, what was it? Smash Brothers Brawl has the
masterpieces,
masterpieces. And, one of the first things people did was just turn all those timers off. And it's like, wow, the ultimate Nintendo collection.
I love that stuff.
Yep.
The one thing I have to say, like, we've talked about, like, all the extras and everything, like, there's lots of really cool music tracks on this, lots of cool like remixes that you can have playing in the background of old Sonic stuff, including like remixes of the Sonic CD Japanese music. And that's necessary because you are forced to listen to the US soundtrack on Sonic CD.
They ported the PC version, and as a result, Europe got stuck with our soundtrack too.
Yeah, I do. That is interesting. I wanted to mention that I did boot this one up and just played through a little bit of all of them, and Sonic CD looks and feels better than I remember, but there are a few things from like you said, this is the PC port, so you do get the full screen, animations for the opening and ending, but yes, they decided to not bother to go and make it an option to change the soundtrack. And so it is just the US soundtrack, which, previous episode we decided is not bad, but also that there should always be an option now, depending on preference.
I was just happy to have like a playable version of Sonic CD again, since I didn't have a Mega CD anymore.
Even if it's full of loading screens.
Yeah. Yes. But every time you go back and forth in time. It's just a shame that this would because CD I feel is the main selling point. If you look at like the cover, it's like Sonic and Metal Sonic and a very cool cover.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but it's a shame that that's like its main drawing point is now like been completely replaced by the future port of that game.
Same with Fighters, honestly, because the modern port has all those extra characters and stuff.
Yeah, although and this is a full home release conversion, like the first time ever, and it's still pretty solid. Like I was even surprised going into the options, the sound test, and there's even different screen screen stretching options to properly emulate the cabinet or your TV at home, and it still plays really solid. I'm still terrible at it. I always make it to Metal Sonic and give up, but it's a solid little port. And even Sonic R still holds up pretty well. That's another game that like your mileage may vary whether, you like it or like playing it or not.
Yeah, I'm a weirdo, so I'm still into it.
Yeah, I still like it a lot. And
it's still the best way to play it is on that one, I guess. It's the one thing Gems Collection has going for it is, hey, Sonic R is there in all its glory.
You can the abandoned PC version. You can go through the trouble of doing lots of fan modifications to make that work and tweak the visuals but yes, the pop in and play, the easiest way to play it is Gems Collection, and it's still really solid.
I do like how the Gems Collection version still retains the PC version's like settings for or changing the display dimensions, and it just doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Yep. Just one of those leftovers. Because I think it's a like kind of a Frankenstein port of like Saturn and PC. I thought I can't
mainly
recall.
PC, although they did make some changes, mostly just like updating the Traveler's Tales logo.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah. No more cool bunny rabbit.
I much prefer that to like the generic tease that you had on there. The old one was so cool. It looked like a bit of Casanova's art from STC, It was that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it's probably the first time I played 3D Blast. I think I saw that logo and just thinking, God, I'm trying to remember the feeling of a kid putting that into my Genesis and seeing that cool logo and just like, wow, there's got to be like a story to that. Like, does he have his own game or just bring back cool logos like that, man? Corporatized minimalism is taking that away.
God, that guy could have been in Sonic. Actually, I look at him again.
Yep. Yeah, like you said, especially STC, his style wouldn't clash at all. He would just be, one of the Emerald Hill folk.
And of course, people have redrawn him as Sonic characters, because of course they have.
Of course.
Oh, the internet, you never let me down. Why has someone redrawn him as Crash Bandicoot? That's weird.
Because they made 2 Crash Bandicoot games.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
They didn't
okay,
they?
so there is a connection. All right, fair enough.
So before we get into our finale, which is as the time of recording, the fairly newly released Sonic Origins, we got to mention Sonic Classics Collection on the Nintendo DS, which I think released around 2010, which also boasts to include Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Sonic and Knuckles and the lock-ons. And oh boy, I put this one on my 3DS and booted it up, and this one's got some problems.
A favorite of bargain bins everywhere.
Yes, I do also recall seeing this one, yes, in bargain bins in the Walmart, $20 section, constantly on sale. And this one just ain't good, folks. I would even forgive the fact that the DS, the original screen ratio, is not quite 1-to-1 the intended 4:3 old TV. So there's a little bit of a scroll back and forth once you reach the edges of the screen. If these games ran better, but they don't. They run terribly. Like I said, I'm no expert on emulation, but you can definitely tell immediately when old Sonic games are running correctly, because stuff like the Blue Shield and Sonic 1 and 2, the effect is messed up because it's not running at, 60 frames per second or 60 hertz, however you call it. And like when you hit the boss, instead of doing the cool flashing when you do a hit, they just, turn a different palette because it's not flashing properly, and Chaos Emeralds and rings don't blink like they should. And yeah, it's real bad. They even made the weird decision to, instead of referring to Sonic 3 and Knuckles as Sonic 3 and Knuckles, like the title screen does, they call it Knuckles in Sonic 3 with a really bad photoshopped logo on the box art. And until I booted it up, it confused me into is this Sonic 3 and Knuckles, or is this just is this just Knuckles in the Sonic 3 levels? But it is Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's just called that, and it's super weird.
It's just misnaming to be in line with Knuckles and Sonic 2, but they are not the equivalent of one another. Even if you do have to put Sonic 2 and Sonic and Knuckles to get Knuckles in Sonic 2, it is not the other way around. It is the full game. I'm tired. Sorry, carry on.
Yes. Well, I feel like by 2010, like, we knew that Sonic and Knuckles was always supposed to be the complete version of Sonic 3, and it had been referred to as Sonic 3 and Knuckles or S3 and K for a long time.
Yeah.
And just to make this decision, which, I think this was done by Creative Assembly Australia, which I don't believe exists anymore.
They do not.
Although Creative Assembly makes a bunch of solid titles. I was playing Alien Isolation again the other day on the Switch port, which is also fantastic, and just thinking like, dang, they just came out of nowhere and made the best licensed Alien game ever. And I think they've got something new coming out from Sega.
Yeah, that Hyenas shooter.
Yeah, which I might check it out, because the fact that they led with that you are playing, a group of thieves doing high speed shooting and stealing artifacts like Sonic plushies and other Sega memorabilia sounds cool. So good for them, but rest in peace to Creative Assembly Australia. The only title I've played of yours is this terrible Sonic game DS collection, which nobody should play. I'm even putting myself in the mind of like a young kid with a DS in 2010. I would be sad if this was the first time they played old Sonic games, because these are not good.
But they could have more games in it, apparently.
Yeah, there's evidence to suggest that, like Mega Collection, this was going to at one point include 3D Blast, Spinball, and Mean Bean Machine on top of it.
And we know that because there's a design document with weirdly photoshopped logos for these games featuring modern Sonic art. I especially laugh at the Mean Bean Machine, which is a modern clip art of modern Eggman, and then randomly one of the robots from Sonic Riders. Like, not an Egg Pawn, but the Sonic Riders robot, I guess, because the styles clashed less.
I mean, it's got arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beans.
Frankly, it's a pretty good choice. There's also pretty light on extras, honestly. Like, there's maybe 20 bonus character art pieces in there, and it's all like the bare minimum stuff, like the Sonic 1 standing art, the Sonic Drift car art. I think like one or two of the screensaver picks. It's honestly pretty minimal. I believe at one point there was supposed to be like another History of Sonic video and then a trailer for Chronicles, but even both of those got scrapped at some point during development. I don't know. This thing was budget as heck, and it kind of showed.
Yeah, I do like legit feel pangs of empathy for the developers, and because I'm sure this was, they were told, yep, get the emulator working on a Nintendo DS, and that's it.
Before we move on to the main event, I think it is worth, just so people don't get on our case about it, briefly acknowledging the one other compilation that's got Sonic in the title. And that's only in the US. That's Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection,
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
Which isn't really a Sonic color compilation.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of Genesis Mega Drive games. And it's only called that in the US. It doesn't have that branding over in the UK and everywhere else. It's a Sega Mega Drive Ultimate collection, and it's just like, what is it, like over 40 games of various things. It's only got Sonic 1, 2... Is it Sonic 1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 and Knuckles with no lock on. And then also 3D Blast, Spinball, and Mean Bean.
Yep.
Well, there you go. That's it. And everything else is good collection if you want to play a bunch of really good old Mega Drive games, but not really a Sonic compilation, the kind we're talking about. It doesn't really have any fancy likes. I mean, it's got something of a... It's got a nice menu, but it does have a bunch of interviews about Sonic, apparently, from the developers, talking about Sonic 06.
yeah. Yeah, like to mention again, there is a video by Mykonos fan about Sonic compilations where he goes into a lot of these weirder ones and stuff like that. Now, what Mega Drive Genesis collection does have is, it's funny you mentioned earlier, Faulerro, the sitting down with your little CRT in your room and thinking it's not going to get better than this. It has a virtual reality recreation of that where. With a 3D rendering of a room with, a Mega Drive on the floor and your CRT TV and fully customizable posters of your various games and a nice shelf with all of the titles. And
it's very much in the PC version as opposed to the console version, but I love it.
Yeah, the console versions don't have 3 and Knuckles.
Yeah, this one has 3 and Knuckles in its own case. Wild.
Also, I don't think the console versions have Eternal Champions or the Echo games.
Man. So
yeah. I would definitely recommend just buying the Steam version because it's constantly on sale and all the DLC's on sale. And also you can add fan mods and extra games. And,
they encourage it.
no lock on, but you can just straight up drop Sonic 3 complete in there to remedy that. And the director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast from the the original director of that version.
And you get to just sit, and if you really want to, you can have the TV playing the game right in front of you, the little CRT, if that's the experience you want. Because it's, although I was always, whenever I played it, it was always like in the evening, so it was always kind of creepy for me. It felt a bit like playing one of those like Slender Man games where you're stuck in the room.
That's why I always adjusted the time so I didn't have to think about it.
Fair enough.
I have an Oculus Quest 2, which I guess now it's called the Meta Quest 2, corporate. If we ever somehow get back to this topic, I'll be able to hopefully have more info on how cool it is. But it's so cool to like at least have the headset on, boot up the game, and just look around, just like pretend that you're this like kid or whatever in his room with like the posters, and there's like I think a bed to your left, and there's the CRT.
Archie comics on your floor.
Yes, it's so cool. It's just fun being in that room.
You get to see what it's like to be us in the 90s playing these games on the actual console and having Sonic all around you.
Yep. Yeah, it's a very nice little collection. And again, I'm like serious where I think when I finally bought it, it was like $4 for the main thing and like, maybe $4 extra for all the DLC. And it's, just something to have like on your computer just in case you might ever want to boot it up.
Not that it includes the Sonic games anymore, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm not even sure how to come into this because I don't want to, like, you can find lots of other sources that point out like the shortcomings of this Sonic Origins collection. And okay, let me pull up my notes because I specifically wrote this down because I want to make sure to talk about this. And I've mentioned it a few times, but basically like what are a lot of these collections? Like, I feel like I've talked about like Mega Collection is probably the best thing. Maybe Mega Collection and Ultimate Mega Drive Collection are probably the closest you're going to get to playing the original versions of these games. Like I said, I'm no expert on emulation. I know another thing we've also learned recently is that most emulation official and fan for a lot of Genesis games got the sound all wrong. Mm-hmm. And we've just now gotten to where we're actually hearing how they were intended to be. But to go back to the idea of these collections as presenting these classic Sonic games for a new generation with modern quality of life improvements, I think Sonic Origins, before we get into details, succeeds at that even with its current problems. And, we're dating the recording a lot. I can only cross my fingers and hope that they do iron out the wrinkles that are in a lot of these, because I very much enjoy and respect what Christian Whitehead, Taxman, and Headcanon, and Pagoda, and all of the, the Sonic Mania folks that worked on these mobile ports that became like remakes with Sonic 1, 2, CD was the only one released officially on consoles. We've kind of covered that one. and how the updates to those are, I guess, I don't want to say bring them in line with modern sensibilities, because a lot of them really are just like we said, the spin dash in Sonic 1, things that seem like they always, the developers wanted that to be there, but just couldn't get it to fit. And Sonic CD is almost its own like whole other monster, where a lot of the stuff they did was just like concepts that they made work into a game. But I respect that work a lot, but I want to acknowledge that, yeah, Sonic Origins, Stealth, head of headcanon and, organized all the people that made the version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles that is in Origins, like, said on their Twitter, and I'm not going to quote them directly, but definitely want to state that they are simultaneously not happy with the state of the game, but also are not blaming like the people that they worked with directly at Sega. They specifically mentioned that even the people like in charge of the game as a whole, like the producer Izuka, all the people they talked to, they're basically not burning any bridges. Like, he didn't say that to say, yeah, we busted our asses making this and Sega f***ed it up. Like, that is the complete opposite of the statement that he made. But he is acknowledging that there are issues that they would like to fix, and it seems like what happened is that they were contracted to make Sonic 3 and Knuckles in the same style, using the tools and the blueprints set forth by Christian Whitehead with the other ports, with Sonic Mania, because that had never been done with Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And then they handed that work to Sega Internal, who put it all into this wrapper. Like, Mega Collection had this presentation, so does Sonic Origins, which also includes, new animations by Tyson Hess, written by Ian Flynn, and restoring the Sonic CD opening and ending with people that work with Discotech and their technology of upscaling and cleaning up. And I think all of that stuff works very much so for me. Like, seeing these new animations in the story mode where you play all 4 games start to finish are beautiful. They add so much character and also illustrate like events we've kind of never seen. Like, I love the Sonic 2 one where it's the I can't remember how to describe them, these two like badger dog looking chavs that hassle Tails before he sees Sonic, and that's like, oh yeah, the little story we've seen in manuals and in translations that Tails was picked on until he saw Sonic and decided to follow him. And
they're chavs because the Mystic Cave music plays while they come up, and that is the sound of someone who's got fruit pastels. Here they are right now.
You can't steal everything.
Have to a little bit.
Yep. So, I don't. I kind of want to just get this all out of the way before we talk about like the stuff as a whole, because Origins, I think, almost kneecapped itself by including the classic mode, which is supposed to be these games like you remember them, but all it's doing is putting these remakes in 4x3, and it's not exactly like the classics. So I feel like that invited some some criticism maybe they didn't intend, and I think people are right to criticize it, because it's not the classic games, but also it really breaks my heart. I saw several people just saying like, well, what is the point of these remakes, period, if they're different or they're so busted or broken. And I really hate to see people turn on the work that Taxman, Stealth, and all them have done, because I think it's very good. I mean, we got Sonic Mania out of it, and this basically end of the line like adds stuff from Sonic Mania, like the drop dash and modern scaling. These games look beautiful, I think, even on a 4K set. And so I guess to finish up saying that I acknowledge that Sonic Origins still has issues. I am very upset that Sega is being very opaque with whether or not they're going to smooth that out, because like I said, Stealth and Headcanon have basically volunteered saying, yeah, we want to keep working on this and smooth it out, but that's also, not the agreement we set to. We handed off our work and it's in Sega's hands now. I'd like to think with with things like Sonic Colors Ultimate, which was also kind of a mess of development for a lot of reasons, but Sega was, very committed to polishing that to an acceptable level. I just wanted to make it clear that I do think it succeeds as being a package for a modern audience I think specifically, I want to say I read an interview, I won't try and quote it, that this was put forth after the Sonic movie did so well and probably introduced a lot of younger fans who might have never played a Sonic game or only played like 3D Sonic games.
Yeah, that is exactly the reason.
I think it succeeds for the most part, but am very, I hope the problems get ironed out so this can be the definitive version. Because I think some of y'all, we were again talking in the pre-show that, if you're somebody like us who's very technically proficient, knows about all this fan compilations, that there are versions, the decompilations of the mobile ports, even the Sonic CD port, Sonic 3 Complete, Angel Island Revisited, that basically do all of the stuff in Origins unofficially. Going back to if I had somebody who said, yeah, my kid likes games, but I don't, know what to get him, I would like to be able to point to Origins and say, yeah, this has all of those. And the disappointing part is that it's not a full home run. It's like, a second or third base hit. And it should have been out of the park. Like, this should have been a no-brainer. And I don't know. There is no one person to blame. I think it's very short-sighted for any of these Sonic medias to try and blame whoever's the producer of the game or the director or who's ever writing the comics or the, English localization and something goes wrong. It's not one person's fault. It's hard for me not to hop on the radical left highway and to say it's the people in Sega corporate who, for some reason, trip all over themselves trying to herald every step the Sonic franchise takes, but it seems the opposite effect happens and they trip all over themselves, making really weird mistakes and things like we said, locking off classic Sonic from the rest of the franchise. We can only speculate, but imposing weird things like, gotta take those voice clips out of Sonic CD because classic Sonic doesn't talk unless it's a comic book. And so I hope some of that stuff gets ironed out, because I really have enjoyed my time with Origins. It's been very solid. It needs those wrinkles ironed out, and I hope that happens. And I'm so sorry for talking for this long.
So is that all your notes?
Pretty much. So yeah, Sonic Origins.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah. It's okay.
It's fun.
To be fair, when Sonic Origins was announced, I didn't have the highest hopes. Hearing that we're finally going to get a console release of the much lauded mobile ports of Sonic 1, 2, and CD. 'Cause I suppose CD was already out, consoles and stuff, but getting them all in one place was exciting. But when the first trailer we got of it, we saw a glimpse of Sonic 3, and it was still in the original aspect ratio. I was like, are they just gonna stick Sonic 3 in the way it was originally?
Yeah, thankfully, they were quick to downplay.
They confirmed they weren't. Yeah, there's a brand new version of Sonic 3. And Knuckles, and that's all you get. I can understand why they didn't do it, but if you're the kind of person who enjoyed being able to slot your Sonic 1, 2, or 3 into Sonic and Knuckles and the other collections, that is unfortunately not available to you here, because Sonic 3 and Knuckles is the default, and I get why. It streamlines it to give you the full game as intended, more or less. But there's a little part of me that's like, but I liked having the separate ones.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just my entitled gamer brain because I had it before and I don't like having things taken away.
But I mean, you are right that other compilations did have that option. And aside from Sonic Jam, which didn't change too much, this is... The other ones were emulations, and this one these are complete remakes with different engines. It might be using, the same assets as the original games for the most part. But yeah, these are from the ground up redesigned.
And I have been a little bit misleading. You do technically get to slot in Sonic 1 and 2 into Sonic and Knuckles, because you get to play as Knuckles in all the games except for CD.
Yes.
Because that would be a lot of work, apparently too much work to keep it consistent. Fine, whatever. And you get to play Blue Spheres as well.
I mean, that is another one of the where I go to back to like the people in charge, where it seems like the only brand new work that was done on this, aside from Sega internal putting them all together in a package, was Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because the mobile ports are still just those for the most part. Sonic CD feels like they went and changed some of those the 2011 releases menus. But yeah, the rest are just the mobile ports. And you could play as Knuckles in Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, but not Sonic CD, because that was the first one they did and probably didn't think about it. You know, again, people that know more about programming were saying that Knuckles might completely break that, but then there's also fan versions with Knuckles in it. So I think it comes down to Sega didn't want to do the extra work. They wanted to get Sonic 3 and Knuckles done first. So again, something that could come in a post-release, like Mania got its plus. You could do that, but then again, Sega's been very not forthcoming with whether they want to do that, which is another thing that this potential collection could have had. Is one of the bonuses you can get is soundtracks to listen to, which sound very nice, but you've got these soundtracks for Spinball, 3D Blast, and Chaotix, even though a lot of them, again, need to be fixed, are mislabeled with the wrong names. But also, like, man, like, you're telling me in 2022 you couldn't have figured out how to get Knuckles Chaotix on there? But then I'm sure there was also some talk of, well, we don't want a mix of emulated games and, these new games, so I don't have my fingers crossed, but that is another thing that stands out. Because, in their cool 3D menus, which I really love, they look very beautiful and apparently use, engines and assets from the upcoming Sonic Frontiers, because they just left that in the code. But they included 3D islands of Mount Mobius from Sonic Spinball and things like that.
And Flicky's Island, yeah.
Yeah, and Flicky's Island as well, and it looks, it's adorable. That is very cool. But yeah, those games aren't there except for the music, and it stands out a little bit. It's very hard for me nowadays to not always have a sense of melancholy when I hear about game development, because, and I don't want to generalize, but it's almost always bad. Like teams that are crunched into the dirt. To get stuff done. And I know not every company's like that there are companies that care about that. They just tend to be like very small, much smaller and not as big as Sega. So it really is everything I like about Origins. There is it seems like there is a trade-off, unfortunately, but
hey, at least it's nice to have like a classic Sonic aesthetic to this classic Sonic compilation for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
Yes, like I can't say enough how like gorgeous the presentation is with those little islands and the menus and lots of the extras. And holy crap, they included Sonic Mania Adventures in like full, I played it on my PS5 and on my budget 4K TV, but full resolution. Watching those on YouTube, I did not know that there was a texture over the animation in general, and you can see that in these versions. Cool. So I am so excited that they included those shorts and some other animations as well and stuff like that. So that is definitely up there with Mega Collections Museum as one of my favorites.
I only wish that we had gotten more original or like a slightly more varied unlockable music, because like all the unlockable tracks are like, it's mostly Generations with a few tracks from like Smash Brothers Brawl and Team Sonic Racing, and that's about it. And I really wish that they had gone a little bit more in-depth, a little bit more obscure in the tracks they included. Like, the image gallery has like covers of some of the old Sonic albums, like Virtual Sonic, and it's like, that would have been so cool to have those songs unlockable in the actual game.
Yeah, way to tease us.
Yeah.
It's like giving us the comic covers without the comics. Why won't you give us the music, darn it?
I know, which, speaking of music, it's also the elephant in the room. We've kind of already talked about it, but this is the version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. They include the original music, but yeah, none of the Brad Buxer tracks. So Ice Cap, Launch Base, Carnival Night, and then the Knuckles theme.
The Knuckles theme is just Sonic and Knuckles theme. They don't use the prototype one. They do reuse the credits music, but not for the credits, just like the pre-credits sequence with the Angel Island. You get a little glimpse of the old prototype credits.
And I thought even something in that new transition from 3 to and Knuckles, which is another thing I love. Yeah. That's so cool.
That's just almost straight up taken from Sonic 3 Complete, let's be honest.
Yes.
Just using the Sonic and Knuckles opening of the Death Egg falling on the Lava Reef Mountain.
I love that we finally have an official, you get the Sonic 3 boss and the Big Arms fight, and it properly transitions, yes, into Sonic and Knuckles. Oh, it's
and the little added unused Robotnik sprite of him off to the Death Egg in the background.
Yep. I like that too. Apparently, the music for this was finalized by Jun Senoi, who was part of the original Sega audio team for these games. And then he composed a new theme for Super and Hypersonic. Now, like I said, point of contention, I don't mind it. I know, I think you specifically, Chris, have said it sounds too Sonic 4-like for your tastes.
Yeah, it beats the invincibility theme playing over and over, because that loops real early. And if you're playing a Supersonic or Hypersonic, you're doing that for a while. Yeah. I appreciate Jun Senoi going back and creating a Sonic and Knuckles specific melody here that sort of ties to the title theme and everything. I just don't really like the instrumentation, and the general melody is a bit Sonic 4-ish for my liking. And the fact that he is using Sonic 1 and 2 drums as opposed to Sonic 3 1, so it sounds a bit out of place.
I was going to say, I've seen people point that out, and I don't dismiss that. I can't disagree. It is one of those things to where also a lot of the audio, again, I don't know exactly why, if it was just the assets they were given, but seems quieter in Sonic 3 and Knuckles than the other games.
Bit muffled, a bit mono almost, it feels like at times.
Yeah, I only notice it when it's played up against other music, like especially if you're listening to it in the gallery. But that is another thing that I hope, could potentially be fixed. It feels very weird to acknowledge it, and this is just my personal opinion, acknowledging it that it is a problem that is different, but also does not affect my personal enjoyment of the game because I don't notice it until someone points it out. I think maybe that's where some people get tripped up, is that you can criticize that, hope they fix it, but also say that it's low on the, my personal priority. Cause, I do see somebody say, and I think it is important to make sure you don't catch yourself, is that defending Sega, the company, is different from me defending like the work that headcanon put into this, if that makes sense. Like, Sega's a big company, they make lots of money, they can fix this if they want. But yeah, that it's not like corporate bootlicking to not on people's hard work that they obviously did put into that.
There's obviously like all the individual people working on assets for this, obviously a lot of passion from everyone involved, from the people creating the opening sequence, the animated sequences that Tyson Hess directed and Ian Flynn wrote, and like the remastered, I guess, upscaled versions of the Sonic CD opening and endings. Like, there is a lot of really great work going into this from individual people. It's just hard not to be cynical about Sega and how they handled the package.
Yes, I just want to make sure that we are making a clear drawing a line in the sand, that there is a difference between criticizing the two. Like, I will criticize Sega all day, but I do, I do not want to denigrate people who, yes, I'm sure were very passionate. I mean, geez, Sonic fans are incredibly passionate, and like, I think most of the people who worked on this game would count themselves among that. And yeah, I just wanted to make that very clear that it's, that there is a difference.
You can criticize this without being hyperbolic.
Yes, exactly.
I.e. every YouTube video that comes out about Origins every day. And you can't help that. It's clickbaity stuff. It's just like the one I saw that someone says like, oh, what was it again? Sega deliberately sabotaged Sonic Origins?
Oh.
Yeah, because they don't want money. Honestly.
If you call in today with your pledge, you too can pay for treatment for people that suffer from YouTube brain. It's a debilitating, eventually fatal disease that affects hundreds of millions of billions of people, unfortunately.
I do feel like I can understand where people come from sometimes. And I think it's specifically with this, because Sonic 3 Knuckles is my favorite Sonic game, and anything that doesn't come out right for it, it sort of sets off that dumb Sonic fan in my head that's like, oh, they are breaking it, they are ruining my favorite, what have they done? Darn you, Sega. You can't help but become that kind of fan sometimes, I've noticed. As much as I try to be like above all the other people saying, I am smarter than all the other Sonic fans and their petty squabbles of whether Sonic should do murder or not. Wait a minute, they changed the music for Super Sonic? This is egregious! How dare they? You have those knee-jerk reactions that sometimes become YouTube videos for some people, I guess.
I try to be self-aware and also indulge sometimes. I mean, literally just doing the, boy, everyone is stupid but me when it comes to Sonic fans. But I know that's not true. I think the best thing to do in that case is just be honest with yourself and others. Like start, be super pissed about stuff you don't like, but just be honest with don't lead with the... like you said, the conspiracy level, Sega did this on purpose to spite me.
And for the love of all that is holy, do not scapegoat one particular person in any of this process.
Yes.
Come on, it's not good. I'm sorry, this is not the work of Ian Flynn, this is not the work of Tyson Hess, nor anybody involved in headcanon or anything. It's not one individual person. All of this comes from up top. It always has done.
Yes. Well, your boss, he says, and we'll censor that.
I'm very tired.
Oh, goodness. But I really hope that didn't come off too heavy. I mean, it is just a lot of, hey, we are dipping into a current Sonic fandom issue, so things are going to get a little heavier than we usually do on the show. But
well, everyone's going to have forgotten about it by the time this episode comes out, most likely, and moved on to whatever is wrong with Sonic Frontiers, I guess.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed that by the time this episode comes out that they announce a substantial patch for Origins. And I'll leave that in so I can come back to it in a future episode and then be very sad. but we'll see.
Hey, guess what they did as of August of this year? So go take a look at those patch notes, and if that sounds like it fixed some of the problems that may have held you off from trying it out, then give it another shot.
And if you're interested in it, I would say, pick up the collection. I'm also sure it'll go on sales on all the storefronts eventually.
Oh, for sure.
All these Sonic games do. But
I did get all of the achievements in Sonic Origins on the first day because I have no self-control.
Holy crap.
To be fair, they're not very difficult.
And then uninstalled it, if I remember correctly.
My final completion time for all achievements was 6.9 hours. So that was pretty nice.
Wow. Nice.
To be fair, some of the achievements are fly as Tails, glide as Knuckles.
Yes, but pro tip, you can use the level select cheats to beat... They won't penalize you for doing it, so...
Ooh.
That's a quick, easy way to beat all the games and get those achievements.
Gotta proceed quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like my general thoughts on Origins are it's fine, but I know it could be better because the individual components have been better, and I would love to see them get polished up a little bit more, either officially or through mods or whatever, just to get them that last little bit over the finish line to become the theoretical, definitive ways to play these games.
I just want the kids to be able to play the best versions of these, because We loved them, and they deserve nothing better than that. But maybe there's a good chance there are a lot of children playing this who don't give a flying toss about any of the things that we have any take exception to.
That is true. Which, again, doesn't excuse, things that Sega, the company, could fix. But yes, we do need to remember that a lot of the minutia we talk about is probably not considered by, kids who are the same age that we were when the Genesis Mega Drive games came out. Probably, don't give a shit about any of the things we talked about. And that's fine. That is 100% fine. God, I forgot to mention that I do not ever want to go back to the special stages in the original games because it's just so much better. Sonic Mania gave me the blue sphere brainworms to where I am... I don't want to say really good. I'm really good at these standard stages. I'm not diving into like the blue sphere randomly generated those or the scary ones with new spheres in Sonic Origins. I'm glad it exists, but yes, and seeing those run very smoothly with the nice redone graphics are oof.
I do think that the Sonic 1 special stages actually feel a little bit tougher in Origins, just because like the smooth scrolling instead of the slow tick 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 as it rotates kind of throws me off. It also feels like it picks up speed a lot faster than before too.
Yeah, this is the one version where I noticed that the up and down circles actually increase that. I don't know. I mean, I've got all the Chaos Emeralds and Time Stones in every in every game. Maybe we'll see in another 10 years if they can trace back the special stages have ruined my eyesight even worse than it already is. That's the feeling I get.
I feel like it didn't take as long with the special stages on Sonic CD this time, and I realized it's because we did this really recently.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yes.
we're especially prepared to handle everything
true.
Sonic CD has in store for us.
And letting you retry them with the coins
yeah.
you earn is absolute genius. Like, yes, what a great idea. No notes.
Sure beats going back to the main menu and going back in like I was doing on the port.
Yes, or trying to get the timing just right and hitting reset on the Mega Drive and seeing if it counted it or not. Oh, so yeah, to end it on a positive note there, some good improvements. But yep, that is our compilation of Sonic compilations.
Whoa.
It was really nice to try some of these for the first time. Like, I can't believe I got Jam running just good enough. Thank you for your help with that, Luke. To be able to mess around with Sonic World, and it's very adorable. And yeah, like I said, really make me sit down and think. I think you said it already. Definitive is probably the better word to use for a lot of these than like preserving or preserving the originals here. And yeah, I also hope Origins becomes that for a new generation.
Yeah. Even if they're not perfectly preserved, I think the real kind of important thing about these compilations is that in the case of the Sonic one specifically, it's consistently been about trying to introduce these games to a new generation and put them forth in their best light. They're meant to be a celebration of Sonic's past and to help show all these newcomers just why everybody fell in love with the franchise in the first place. And I get the sense that absolutely worked for a lot of people when it came to like Jam and Mega Collection. And I'm hopeful that the same will apply to Origins in the years to come.
Just like with every new upcoming 3D Sonic game, every time Sega releases a compilation like this, they're trying to make new Sonic generations.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Look, at the end of the day, whatever you think about any of these compilations, it's still more work than has ever been put into a Mario compilation.
Hey.
Well, Super Mario All-Stars was alright.
The first time.
Yeah. And that was it. Mario, hey, at least they remade the games, but then they thought, hey, let's re-release this forever at full price. Gosh dang it, Nintendo.
Man, you want to talk about a company that has problems with preserving its own history. Woof. But that is not our purview on this show, but And that wraps up another episode of The Hill is Always Greener. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, it was a lot of fun revisiting some of these and playing them for the first time. And I feel like I personally got a lot off my chest of various thoughts about like what it means to preserve these games and present them to new players. But I am Jeremy, also known as GameBuddy most places, and you can follow me on Twitter at GreatJobJeremy. That is GR and the number 8.
You can find me on Twitter at CyberLink420.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at RockTheJake.
And you can find me at Faulerro on Twitter and just about every other social media. That's Faulerro. Wait, that's not right. That's not how you say that. Faulerro. It's Faulero.
Your Australian counterpart.
Go follow me if you want to see cave girls all the time, apparently.
That's okay by me. As always, a very special thanks to Amy Waters for the use of our theme song from the album Gotta Go Slow. You can check out more of her work on YouTube and Bandcamp and other social medias, and definitely do. That album especially, I think, slots right into the same easy listening as like the Mega Collection soundtrack.
Sure does.
For sure. And of course, please remember to like, rate, share, subscribe. Basically, do all the usual subscriber stuff for the podcast, because we really like doing this. We want to keep doing this, and you doing all that stuff helps us to grow the audience. So,
just like I warned before, all that clickbait stuff that we made fun of in this episode, we're going to start doing it if y'all don't, because we're desperate for people to pay attention to us.
No, and I know lots of shows say that, but the truth is that it works. Like, that is not like clickbait hearsay. Like, engaging with the show, writing reviews on Apple Podcasts, spreading it around does actually help more people see it. And we do this because we are good friends who like sharing our Sonic thoughts and formats, and it is fun to do. But also, yes, it is in our free time, and it would be much easier to know that there's a built-in audience to get that out there. So thank you very much for the people that do that. I really do. Just knowing that, a handful of people are regular listeners really does warm the cockles of my heart. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for always having something to say, AEW. You're the one OG of the show. For
yes.
Sure.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh man, I'm going to get a little choked up. No, I'm going to cut that out. No, it really does. But next time, so I said that like very much like a next time on Sonic X. Don't miss it. No. So next time on The Hill is Always Greener, I think we are going to dip into, again, some non-Sonic game media. And good golly gosh, is it finally time to talk about SatAM?
Sure is.
Yes, it must be. We've been dunking on it for a while. No, you know what? It's nice to. We're always focusing on positives here, and I think we're going to have a fun time talking about something very specific in what is known as SatAM, or ABC Sonic the Hedgehog, if you will.
Yep, I think we have decided we are going to look at the two-parter episode, Blast to the Past. More time travel.
Whoa. Yeah. We love that on this podcast, apparently. Can't wait till we do our Sonic on the Fourth Dimension episode.
Ooh, hey, you say that. Yes, I'm excited to read those books. I've never read them before.
Oh, I guess we're gonna, but that's not next episode, by the way.
No, next time, yes, we are watching some SatAM episodes. Blast to the Past, the two-parter. One of the few times Sir Tim Curry appears as the unnamed King Acorn. But yeah, I think that'll be really fun. Yeah, like you said, we dunk on SatAM. I have some really good memories of a lot of episodes, especially the ones I had on VHS as a kid that I watched dozens and dozens of times. So I'm looking forward to that. But until then, I'm GameBuddy.
I'm CyberLink.
I'm RockTheJake.
And I'm Faulerro, and hey, judging by your outrage, I'm guessing someone's having fun.
Oh.
Goodbye, everybody.